Hey guys, how are you doing? It's Cryptoinsightuk here, bringing you back another YouTube video. Today, I've got so much to go into in this video. I'm going to go into what I think short term for the market, what I think maybe medium to longer term for the market. I'm going to go into why I like a certain project specifically. I'm going to go into my thoughts on NFTs and why I like them specifically at the minute. I'm going to go into more macro. Literally so much to unpack here. So I am going to try and timestamp this, and I've not really done that before on YouTube. And I'll get to that. Like, I'm not great at editing and that sort of thing, as you can probably tell. I just normally upload them pretty raw. Something I need to work on, I know. And yeah, without further ado, I'm just going to start offloading my thoughts to you guys, because I don't think I've shared enough. Like, with my close circle, I share all the time and we chat and I talk to people, etc. And with my newsletter, etc., I give them a lot of my views. But this is just my thesis in general. And remember, all these things are always moving parts. Things can change, and if they do, I'm not always quick to communicate it, but they still might change. Why the newsletter is quite important, because I do say on there what I think each week. But yeah, let's get into it. So I'm going to start with something Credible Crypto's pointed out, and I'm very similar to Credible Crypto in his TA and some of the stuff he's pointing out here. So he's basically saying, as I called as well, like a little while ago, I thought we'd rip up to 25k for Bitcoin without a pullback, and it has happened so far. And I'm in a bit of a conflicting boat right now. I've sold my Ethereum exposure. I had 4 ETH, which isn't a substantial amount to me, but it isn't nothing either. I don't have much cash on the side right now, massively exposed to the markets. Just want to take a little bit of profit. It's not loads, it's not life-changing, but it is something that if we do have a dip, I can buy back in with, or I can just use for everyday cash. That's pretty much why I've sold that. Credible Crypto is talking about a 3-day bullish divergence on the charts here for Bitcoin and how he thinks that could play out. Look, if we just have a look at his little graphic here, in like a bullish pennant, boom, we could come down, find some support and head off higher. I'm going to show you my thoughts. I'm going to go for Bitcoin specifically on the daily time frame. If we say that this was the low here, then we've had like a 5-wave impulsive wave pattern, which you could use Elliott wave theory to draw out. If I can find Elliott wave 1 to 5, here we go. This is what it would look like. 1 down for 2, 3 up to the highs here, 4, and then 5 just slightly higher here. And normally after this, if you follow Elliott wave theory, you'll see an ABC correction, and that could be A, B, and C down to the low. I'll just show you what potentially could happen for an Elliott wave correction. Sorry, just drawn that wrong. Oh dear, I don't want that. And let's just go again. With an ABC correction here, A wave down to, doesn't even have to come down too far, it could just come down to 23. The B wave not setting a high, and the C leg coming down anywhere between 20-ish thousand, 21-ish thousand, all the way down. It could come down to 18, depending on how deep this A wave goes. Like, that's up for anyone's debate. Could it come down to about here? Yes, it could, 21, and then B could come below the resistance that we're setting here, and then C could definitely come deeper for almost up to 18k, and you can see this better on the weekly. I'll draw it on the weekly now, so I'll show you what I'm looking at. So as we're stuck between the 200 and the 50-day EMAs, this is what I think could potentially happen with the ABC correction here. Let's just show you. It's just corrected them for me. So look, the A wave could come down even to this previous resistance level here. Then we could bounce back up, not set a higher high for the B leg of that wave, and then the C leg could come down to the top of this wick here if we have an aggressive wick down, and then we'll probably start a 5-wave pattern towards the upside again, is what I'd expect. However, I am not completely with this thesis. It's my base case, but I'd say I'm 60 or 70% there and 30 to 40% the other way, which is this market continues to surprise everybody. As you see on the weekly time frame, the RSI for Bitcoin, it's not really overbought. We've got a lot of volume coming in on the last weekly candle. We've broken above a moving average. Could we see something like that again? Absolutely. Could we rip all the way up to 33-ish thousand at the bottom of this recent swing low, which came back in March of 2022, I think. January of 2022, even a long time ago. Could we go and test that? Potentially. I think there's a lot of argument to say yeah, but with the shorter term time frame, with this bearish divergence, we are looking more towards a pullback in the short-term time frame. So what we're seeing is lower lows on the relative strength index and higher highs on the price action. The same on Ethereum, lower lows on the RSI, higher highs on the price action. And same with XRP. I think XRP is coiling up a little bit more. I think XRP could take on the medium term. But yeah, that's basically my thoughts on the market right now in terms of technical analysis, where I think we could be going. I'm base case that we do have a pullback, but 30 to 40% that we could just keep ripping and surprise everyone in the market, essentially. So next, I want to look at why stocks and shares specifically are ripping or have been pushing, or at least aren't pulling back as heavy as they were in the past. And you might say, oh, ripping, they're not moving anywhere. They're not moving anywhere recently, but if we quickly look at the SPY and the Dow Jones, as you can see, the SPY is down 1%, 1.5% today. But from the lows, we have had quite a rally. From the lows, we've had a rally of 15% on the S&P, and the Dow Jones a little bit more than that. Dow Jones looks more bullish than the S&P right now to me. Dow Jones is at about 16%, but the low isn't quite as deep. We've broken the recent swing high on the Dow Jones, and we are in an ascending bullish pennant. I personally believe they're going up, and the reason for these thoughts is because of Chinese liquidity, and we're going to go into this in a few different terms. I started talking about this all the way back when. I'm just going to check when the date of this newsletter was released, in November. So if you were reading my newsletter, I told you that this was coming for the stock market, and obviously correlates to crypto as well. I talked about credit impulses, references Raoul Pal's top 5 charts that make you go and the global manufacturing PMI, which is basically the people who manage money to do with manufacturing and where they spend money, and the relationship of that between the Chinese credit impulse. But I actually related it to, and I put this tweet out over on Twitter, obviously. I put this tweet out comparing the Bitcoin liquid index, which is essentially the Bitcoin price, but going all the way back to like 2013, and compared that to Chinese credit impulses as well, and lined them up on the chart when we had Chinese credit impulses with the green lines and the red lines when the credit impulse finished, and what Bitcoin did at that time. We had a Chinese credit impulse pretty much at our bottom, which was looking at, we'll just tell you what date this was published again, the 27th of November, actually, I think off the top of my head. And then if we look where Bitcoin was on the 27th of November, it was right here. So here, this is the 27th of November at 16,450 when I wrote that, and now we're up at 24,500. So this is why I wrote about things like this back then. Let's have a look. 27th, percentage-wise, we are up since then, 49%. This is what I was talking about back then. And then next, what I'm going to quickly talk about is also, we're going to talk about the Chinese stocks and shares, the MCHI, which is an ETF of some stocks and shares in China. We talked and wrote about this in this newsletter, which was written back in, I wrote this in the second week of December, and I talked about Chinese stocks, obviously as an effect of their credit impulse as well. And at the time they were down here, and the second green candle was being printed. It was around here, 42, and now it's up here at 50, having a bit of a pullback, and the same on the DXY. But I was just comparing what's happened in the past with some long drawn out consolidation periods, and pullbacks, and then short sharp moves to the upside as liquidity comes into the market, essentially. So next, what am I looking at with, I'm going to leave the trading view open actually, because one thing I'm going to look at is, we're talking about Chinese liquidity again. I'm going to close that because we talked about that. But what I am really bullish about for crypto is Chinese liquidity in terms of crypto specifically. As we've seen Chinese liquidity come into the market, I've shown you there proof of assets rallying from the liquidity from China. Everyone's got their eyes focused on the Fed, and that is a massive part of what goes on as well. So that's another thing that I'm taking into consideration at the minute. Last month's CPI did come in higher than expected. So are the Fed going to be more hawkish, or still stay hawkish and maybe suggest another rate hike in the next meeting, the next FOMC meeting? Potentially. There's definitely potential for that. But people are overlooking Chinese liquidity, which has been leading the market recently. And the next big thing for China specifically is Hong Kong. Hong Kong proposes rules for crypto trading platforms, and these rules are going to come into place on the 1st of June. Hong Kong going to open up to the retail markets and institutions for trading crypto as a branch of China. Even though crypto is illegal in China, Hong Kong is going to be acting as the hub for trading in China, and obviously we've seen in the UK more of a push towards CBDCs, etc. as well. So is this going to be more bullish information for crypto specifically? I would personally say yes. Oftentimes in crypto, you should buy the rumor and sell the news. So when we get towards the 1st of June, if we're pumping into that date, maybe look to take some profits in and around there. That's personally what I'll be looking at, not necessarily doing. Just depends on how the market's going specifically. This is going to do one of two things. It's going to put the US under pressure. If they keep being as strict as they are regulatory-wise with the SEC and Gary Gensler, then they can probably get left behind here if they're not careful. However, in the meantime, Gary Gensler and the SEC have a quota to reach in terms of how much money they need to bring in. So they are going to be aggressive as can be, especially if something comes out the back of this Ripple versus SEC lawsuit. So Chinese liquidity is something that I've definitely got my eye on. Through Hong Kong, crypto could really, really take a pump here. So that is something that I really want to stress to you guys. And the chart's looking pretty primed for it as well, like into June. Boom, as I said, if we had that ABC, then we could probably push up towards a $30,000 to $40,000 range for Bitcoin into June. Could we see more in altcoins? Yeah, I personally think so. I do think I'm very bullish on Ethereum at the minute. Something that Raoul Powell said that sticks with me is that crypto is waiting for its AI moment, meaning that everyone knows about crypto, everyone knew about AI, but as soon as ChatGPT came out, we had like 1 million users come onto ChatGPT within 5 days. Are we going to see an application like that come for crypto, or is someone going to use some sort of payment system? I'd say if it's going to be an application, it's probably more likely to be on Ethereum. If it's going to be some sort of payment system, more likely to be with XRP or a specific payment token. That's the way I look at it personally. With the introduction of CBDCs, you've got the insurance layer of that if you're an XRP holder, which is what I am massively. My main bag's in XRP by an absolute long shot, a long way. So next, we are going to talk about, this is just me talking about Chinese liquidity. I've shown you the two charts now. Try and keep this as short as possible because I've got so much information to go through. So going on to XRP, nice little lead up into that accidental, but we'll take it. Stuart Alderati has tweeted, the SEC has lost 4 of its last 5 cases at Supreme Court, thanks to a few that had the courage and resources to fight back against the SEC's bullying and clinging to stretch legal positions that were not faithful to the law. So is he suggesting by this that Ripple versus the SEC is going to go to Supreme Court? Or is he suggesting to the SEC that they don't mind going to Supreme Court to try and put pressure on a settlement, etc.? I don't know. You guys make your own opinion of that. I just wanted to bring it up because Stuart Alderati is obviously the Chief Legal Officer at Ripple. Next, something I wanted to talk about is crypto and NFTs, specifically with Matt Hancock, whether you like him or not. Isn't the point I'm trying to make. In fact, I'd like to leave all that out the way because it just turns into a political debate, and I don't really care for politics because I think all politicians are bellends, to be completely honest. Or not all, because that's putting them a broad brush, but the majority of them, who all, again, not all, mostly are out there to progress their personal journeys and become the best they can be career-wise, and kind of forget the reason that they're into politics or MPs in the first place is to actually help the people of the country that they're supposed to be representing. You see it all over the world, it's not just the UK. But yeah, anyway, aside from that, Matt Hancock has been talking about a Ukrainian family. He does in this video, you can go and check it out. And they're going to raise money for a humanitarian effort in Ukraine through an NFT project. And I just thought this was super interesting. Whether you like it or not, mainstream, influential people talking about not just crypto, but also NFTs. So I personally have quite a lot of exposure to NFTs at the minute. I think NFTs are going to be a big part of our future. It's up to you guys to do some research on NFTs, or if you want me to go into more detail on them. Raoul Powell explains it brilliantly in this in a video, this video here specifically, which is, on his Real Vision. he just released it the other day, and before this I already have personal exposure a lot to Yuga Labs, which is like Bored Ape Yacht Club, and that's about it at the minute, and we're going to go into why. I sold my ETH earlier, not necessarily my ApeCoin, which I have ApeCoin, I've got a Bored Ape, I've got Mutant Ape, I've got a dog, I've got some other side deeds, all these sorts of things, and some ApeCoin itself. But he talks about how taking a position in an NFT is like a leverage bet on Ethereum, essentially. The same way as when he was in Europe back in, I can't remember what he said, maybe 2011. And he said that he swapped all his euros over to dollars. Started taking payments for his global macro investor in dollars because he thought the dollar would outperform the euro. And he then bought a property with those dollars. So then he got the appreciation on the property and the appreciation of the dollar against the euro. Essentially what's happens with NFTs as well. If you can pick a good NFT project like Bored Ape Yacht Club, hopefully, no one knows. Again, it's a gamble. It's crypto. Everything's a gamble. If you buy a good NFT project like Bored Ape Yacht Club, over time adoption for them goes up specifically, and we're going to talk about why I think adoption for Yuga Labs assets, ApeCoin, Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs are going to go up in time. That's what my personal belief. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But he says it's like a leveraged bet because you get the appreciation of price of the Ethereum against the dollar, but also the appreciation of price of the NFT against Ethereum. So it's like a double bubble essentially. But yeah, go check that video out if you want to learn more about that. Right, we are going to go on to NFTs, and then I will finish with CBDCs, which is going to be a different play to what I was going to do. I was going to do CBDCs and then NFTs, but we're going to go the other way now. So we're going to talk about ApeCoin first. On a technical level, as you can see, what I've highlighted here is the last time on the daily time frame that the RSI crossed bullish and the percentage rise we had from that, 79% rise. Recently, the RSI is looking to cross bullish again. Could we get another 79% rise from where that happened, which was here? And that's why I drew the bottom in from there. And that could take us up to like $9. I personally think that this sort of move could be coming for ApeCoin for a few different reasons. And we've got a lot going on within the Yuga Labs like umbrella, I guess. So in mid-March, we're going to get the second trip, which is like another move into their metaverse. The other side metaverse is what it's called. If you want to check it out on Twitter, it's at Other Side Meta. These are Yuga Labs products. By the way, I have no affiliation with these at all. I've just got massive exposure, and I'm talking about why I've got that exposure personally. So next off, we're going to talk about why ApeCoin. I have my ApeCoin staked with my Mutant Ape. It's earning me 0.00447 ape per day, ApeCoin per day per ape I've got staked. I think I'm making about 7 or 8 ApeCoin a day with the staking that I've got at the minute, so you can work that out if you want to. But it comes out quite a lot of money when ApeCoin's at 560. I think I'm making $50 a day or something around that. That's obviously not, the math isn't correct, but that is around what I'm making, about $45 to $50 a day from my ApeCoin staking. So there's definitely some potential there. Obviously, the asset is massively volatile, but other things I talked about, I did actually talk about Ape in the newsletter back at $3.50. Mentioned it a lot of times before and after this. I mentioned it up here, I mentioned it here, I mentioned it here, and we talked about it for weeks, and now we're up at 560. So anyone who got in is obviously in profit. We've talked about the ApeCoin staking now. Another thing, there's a lot coming up for Yuga Labs, specifically with their roadmap for the Dookie Dash game, which I've been playing. I've got one tier 4 sewer pass personally. I've got a 1 tier 2. I've got a tier 4 with a client, and I've got 50% of a tier 2 with my friend as well. So I've got that exposure. Another reason why I sold my ETH. I've got so much exposure to Yuga Labs at the minute. I wanted a bit of cash just in case my base case is right. We do come down. I'm still holding the rest anyway for a further push to the upside. But as you can see, 22nd of February, which is tomorrow, we're going to see another Yuga Labs announcement. Lick the Toad, supposedly go back in and get some more hype around the game. Then we've got the summoning on the 8th of March, something else at the end of March, and then early April and May. All these announcements coming, coupled up with the other side metaverse, other side plots of land are going up in price at the minute in terms of the NFT, the ETH value of those. They went from about 1.5 ETH that they were stuck at for a long time up to about 2 ETH. So we've got all of that come in, which could all incentivize ApeCoin price action, NFTs being traded, and potential rise in the price of Yuga Labs assets should they perform well. On the other side of that, they could mess up some announcements and it could go the opposite way, but I've got my money where my mouth is, so to speak. There's also a great thread here from Bonzo over on Twitter. Have a look. Pause this video now if you want to go check him out. OX Bonzo. He talks about staking rewards. He also talks and sheds one piece of warning though. So there's 2 or 3 other games coming out for Bored Ape Yacht Club, which I just showed you the timeline of a second ago, which is what makes people, another thing that makes people bullish about it. Shows you how much you can earn. One thing that is important that he does give a warning of, on the 16th of March, launch partners will be able to unlock their ape and potentially sell. What do we expect? So there is a sales date coming up at the 16th of March, doubled up with a lowering of the APY in the ape pools. So at the minute we're earning massive APY in the ape pools, like 157% APR, sorry, in the pools. And this gets lowered in mid-March, as well as some ape coin being unstaked from the founders, essentially. So could this be a double bubble in terms of selling? So you've got about 3 weeks for potential bullish price action before we see a potential sell there. But we don't know what happens with the incentivizing of the other side metaverse and also with the mini games from your Yuga Labs and the trading that goes on around there. So they're probably going to incentivize the use of ape coins within the mini games and also within the metaverse, which makes me bullish on it in general. So all that's taken into consideration. That's why I'm massively exposed to Yuga right now. Finally, we're going to finish with CBDCs. I'm not going to play this clip. It's Augustin Carson's just saying that he wants central banks to have complete control over the CBDCs. Before we get into CBDCs, let me explain to you, I'm not necessarily bullish for CBDCs, but I do think using the right way, they could help our financial system a lot. I'm going to go into them in detail in another video if that's what you guys want to hear. The thing I want to talk about the CBDCs is the effect on the macro long term. The effect on the macro long term, in my opinion, this is what's going to happen. And absolutely so broad brushed long term time frame. This is what I think we will see in the next between 2 and 20 years. And I know that sounds broad, but you're gonna hear why now. First off, we know that the USA is under a significant amount of pressure with the amount of debt they have. They're trying to raise the debt ceiling now. They're about $31 trillion in debt of US dollars, obviously. The whole world is transitioning into a digital world with CBDCs being introduced. When CBDCs do eventually become introduced and part of the mainstream payment system, there's going to be the option, as it's programmable money, for negative interest rates to be programmed. Meaning if you put your money in the bank, they can actually reduce liquidity in the markets. At the minute, all they can do, is raise interest rates. You then deposit your money into bonds or whatever into the bank, and then they can slow down liquidity that way, bringing markets to a bit of a slowdown. But the general trend for assets over time is up as we live in a debt-based system. Debt to be paid off actually increases the amount of liquidity in the market or capital in the market in general. So when CBDCs come in and it can go the opposite way in terms of interest rates, so we have negative interest, that could be, not necessarily will be, could be the first time that we could have a deflationary currency. It's been inflationary ever since inception of fiat. It moved off the gold standard, became even more inflationary because they could just print whatever, they didn't need to have it backed. And now, or when CBDCs come in, it could become deflationary. What does that mean? Well, for assets, I don't actually know. It could be positive because they could keep it inflationary. It's in everyone's best interest for it to be inflationary. It means people can lend and borrow money. It means that growth can happen, etc. But it also puts another spin on the monetary system where they can actually draw dollars out of the system. What will happen between now and then? I don't know. But if you think that the general trend of stocks over time, let's just have a look at it so I can actually give you a visual of what I'm trying to explain. If we think the general trend of equities over time is upwards, if we just look at this on the week, this is the weekly, pretty easy to see. We'll put it on the yearly, the monthly, whatever you want to look at. Over time, stocks go up. Okay, this is monthly. This is yearly, sorry. Over time, stocks go up. That's because more money comes into, or one of the reasons is more money comes into the system. or dollars come into the system and stocks are valued against dollars, therefore they increase in value. One has less demand than the other because one's inflationary and is just printed out of thin air, which is the denominator, the dollar in this case, and the numerator is the stock. I personally believe the US wants to inflate away debt as much as possible, at least for now. What I mean by that is when you've got a big amount of debt in an asset, just like what happened. I mean, Germany after World War II is a great example of the extreme. Is that the mark? They owed a lot of money to Europe in the mark from debt that they had from World Wars I and II. They print the mark to oblivion. The D-mark, or whatever. No, sorry, not the D-mark. The mark, the German currency, and that way the debt is lowered because they have to pay back the debt in the mark, and if they can print unlimited amounts, then they can pay the debt back, but it just means that the mark itself gets devalued against other currencies. So if the dollar has $31 trillion worth of debt attached to it, the more they print, the less that 31 trillion and a relative value is worth. But the more they print also has a knock-on effect to the stock market. The more dollars they print, the higher the stock market goes, essentially, because that's what you're measuring it against. So this is where I think the next 5 to 20 years, we could wrong for everybody who's waiting for this financial crash. I know that everyone is waiting for that. And I think we could just rip. I don't see here big fat green candles to the upside. But I think if I'm right, and if people start to see the same sort of picture as I do, we could just see big green candles to the upside as the Fed, the Treasury, start to print a shitload of dollars to be able to pay off or at least minimize the damage that their debt will do to their economy. Obviously, it's going to be big problems off the back of this, but then when CBDCs start to come in, they can start to taper that down and then start to actually make it turn the other way. What it means for the monetary system, monetary policy long term, we don't know. Like, we've never seen like instant payments and negative interest rates, or I've never seen it. I don't know what this does to assets long term. They obviously might not introduce negative interest rates, but they could. I'm just saying that between now, though, and the introduction and full-scale rollout of CBDCs, I think we see a big rally in all markets, because I think they're just going to print a shitload of money. And I actually think crypto could be the biggest beneficiary of this, because as we move to a more digital currency, we are going to move to more digital-based assets. It just makes sense, doesn't it? Like, it's not rocket science here, whether you like crypto or not, unless it gets completely banned. So unless it goes to zero, I think it's just going to rip. And that's basically my fucking thoughts on the whole market in general. What else have we got to talk about? And in terms of who's experimenting with CBDCs, everybody, 90 whatever percent of the world it is right now, I don't know, 95, 98%, I don't know. Ripple specifically are working with Bank of England. They have big ties in Japan to launch their digital yen pilot in April. England to launch theirs, or the UK to launch theirs this year. Consultation papers are out. China have got their CBDC. You don't need all of these places to work with Ripple and XRP. You just need one, essentially, and then the price of the asset's going to go massively through the roof. We've not seen any sort of value based on anything, based on actual like use case. It's all speculation right now. They have big ties with Japan. They've got big ties with the UK. I showed you the article before. Now, why am I talking about Ripple and XRP right now? Well, because what I don't get, and I was thinking about this morning when I was in the shower, obviously a weird shower. I thought this is how weird I am. I was in the shower this morning. What I was thinking about is Bitcoin maximalists. One of their big arguments against digital currency and CBDCs in general is like, oh, CBDCs are going to enslave the planet, and like, basically, if you buy Bitcoin, then you've got an escape plan to the evil rulers that are going to rule over us. Cool. Yeah, you might be right with that. Like, I don't know, but in that sentence, what you're suggesting is there's one fact: the CBDCs are coming. You're putting 100% weighting on that possibility if you're using that analogy to buy Bitcoin. If you've got 100% probability that CBDCs are coming, why would you not at least put some of your portfolio into an asset that potentially supports CBDCs for the same reason as you want to buy Bitcoin? You want to buy Bitcoin to go against CBDCs so you're not ruled over, basically just so you've got money. But if you can't use that money, then what's the point? So why not just buy another asset like XRP, specifically for my example, that is potentially going to help with a lot of different CBDCs, if not all of them. We don't know where or what or if it fits into the picture, but surely it's more likely to appreciate in value when you're already telling us that the whole financial system is going to be based around CBDCs, and this thing helps CBDCs, but you're telling people, oh, buy the opposite so you're not trapped. I mean, I don't know. That's the way I look at it anyway. Whether they're morally right or wrong or whatever, that's up to you to decide. And I do think Bitcoin has a place in the future, and that's not me having a go at Bitcoin maximalists. I just think that specific argument is dumb. Because if that is what you think, yeah, okay, buy some Bitcoin if you want to be against the system, but also why not buy something that's going to be potentially with the system, or a basket of things that are potentially going to be with the system, because surely they're going to appreciate a lot more in value, as all the money is going to go there and only a tiny bit of the money of people who want to be financially escaped are going to go to Bitcoin. So that's my logic, and I am still going to buy Bitcoin. I still hold Bitcoin because of like network effect and the compound, and like the year over year like compounded interest rates that have been proven in the past so far. I will still hold Bitcoin, but I just think XRP is logically, in that sentence specifically, a lot more viable as an option that's going to produce more profit in the future. And if it doesn't, then I could be wrong. But that's where, again, I'm putting money where my mouth is. And we'll see who's right and who's wrong over time. And I'm happy to be wrong if I am, because I've done my research. And that's why I've made the decision. One of the reasons I made the decision that I have, along with all the technicals as well. So I know that this video has been super, super long. And I've just rambled a lot. Wanted to get my thoughts out there for you guys. Wasn't particularly structured in a specific way. Did have a structure for it, but I just wanted to try and do that and get my brain out from whatever I think is potentially going to happen in the short, medium, long term. If you enjoyed the video, please share it with a friend, and yeah, like it, put the good comments in there. You know how it is. But yeah, thank you for tuning in, guys. I'm going away for a few days. I've got a friend visiting over from Bali. His name's Matt. He's actually a YouTuber, or it's Ragnar. If you know him from YouTube, he makes like NFT videos, and he's got Twitter and stuff. He's mainly focused on Solana, so well, no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, anyway, have a great weekend, guys. If I don't speak to you before, sign up to the newsletter if you don't already. For some reason, we had an unsubscription again this week, even though, like, I don't know, maybe the text is too bulky in the newsletter. I'm not sure exactly why people don't actually normally leave their reason if they unsubscribe. But all we've done is make pretty decent calls, and everyone who's bought the newsletter should have made money, so I don't really understand it for £10 a month or whatever. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, guys, and I will speak to you in the next one. Peace up, A-Town down, as Usher would say.